update on that, Shannon?
Yes, so as everybody is aware, we, we're all set to go. We had our funding recommendations, presented our recommendations to council at the most recent study session. They were set to deliberate on November 21st, so Monday.
Update on that, Shannon?
Yes, so as everybody is aware, we, we're all set to go. We had our funding recommendations, presented our recommendations to council at the most recent study session. They were set to deliberate on November 21st, so Monday.
Update on that, Shannon?
Yes, so as everybody is aware, we, there we go. All right. Hey, Mary.
Hi.
This is Denise Franklin.
Denise, nice to meet you. Welcome.
Thank
you.
So, we had, and then it was discovered that Making a Difference did in fact, submit an application by the deadline under the Access for Food category. And so we are now at a position where I had to pull the November 21st item so that we as a board can decide what it is we want to do in this situation. And so, went ahead and sent you all the application. I have everybody's ratings. I have explained to Denise, because you were not involved in our original ratings, we're gonna go ahead and, not, account for your rating in this, so we'll have 4 original raters.
However, we'd love for your feedback.
Yes.
Because this is really going to be a conversation regarding options, opportunities to decide how we want to move forward, and, you know, we'd love to have your feedback on it, but we wanted it to be as bananas and apples.
Well, and I think also how we consider or think about this could happen again, which we wouldn't want it to happen, but
No.
something is overlooked.
So there's a consistency in case we were to do this.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
you introduced Councilmember
I
Branstetter,
did.
correct?
Yep.
Right, and, do you think you'll be filling in for Councilmember Farmer in the
She
future?
could not make it this evening, so she asked me to.
And we're so he's here to observe, but also, he's been a part of this group for many, many years, and is very aware of all the things that we do, which is great. And then, we'll see what happens, you know, with the, council liaison position next year, because they picked new liaisons, and we'll see. Council, and who wants to be our liaison next year?
Kind of a fun group.
Yeah. So,
Okay. So that is where we are today. I have everybody's rating, and, with the 4 applications, we have a 37.75 average. So at 37, that puts them in our second category of funding at $22,500.
do you have a list where it would fit in so that people at home can play along too? And we all can see it?
Oh, you mean to share on the screen?
Well, do you have
No.
copies for everybody, so we know how it fits into the list? I
No,
mean, we need to see how it fits within the total.
yes, and sorry, I brought that, I did not
I
take
can go make
copies of
copies.
my scenarios.
Oh.
Here you go. Sorry, guys, I didn't even think about that,
I can copy it and send it.
okay. So 37.75, now while Mary's doing that, what I will do is, go over the options that we have. So, option 1 is that we would not consider, Making a Difference application and continue with the recommendations as they stand, and then we would present to council on November 21st. So that's option 1. Option 2 is that we pull those November 21st funding recs. We review and rate the application, and present our revised funding recommendations to council on December 5th. Okay, so you guys rated all of those. Option 3 is review and rate the application and present the revised funding recommendations again to council on December 5th. And then we would, that was option number 3. Oh, option number 4 is review and rate the application and present revised funding recommendations to council in January. Option 5 is scrub all of the current funding recommendations and assign a funding percentage per strategic category. Now, if we were to, right, I mean, that's an option.
It's
Again,
an option.
our purpose here is not, it's for you to make a decision on what you want to do as a board. So we could say, all right, we're just gonna, it's too bad, we're not gonna consider the application, we're gonna proceed. So we all have to agree, is that something we want?
No,
Okay.
that's not fair.
That's not
Correct.
fair.
Okay, I'm just, okay.
Absolutely can't be done.
The second option, again, would be to, yes, we're considering it, and then take or monies, either a certain percentage point or a dollar amount, from the other applicants. Or we, like I said, the other option is scrub all current funding recommendations and say, all right, we're going to allocate this much to each certain category.
That
And I
seems
have the
most
numbers.
likely.
Who's most balanced and
Yeah.
Start over again.
Well, it's not totally starting all over again, because we've got the scores, which is how
Right.
we do it.
Oh, I
so
know, but ask for the
I
funding.
Yeah.
think that's the way we have to do it.
And so what I looked at, okay.
What do the people at virtual say, oh, we've got a
Yeah.
hand here? What do the virtual folks feel?
I think we have to consider the application, and I think if I heard correctly, option 3 is the one where we reconsider funding for all. Is that right?
Yes, and we would assign percentages per, funding priority or strategy. So for
Michael, you're on
instance,
mute.
so we have the 5 strategies, and
So
so, go
I
ahead,
have
Michael.
I have another option. This is a little bit outside the box, but we screwed up, right? I mean, it was an application, it was on time, it's legitimate. So, Mike, does the city have a slush fund where we can give this group $22,000?
Let's wait for Mary, let's wait for Mary to come back on that one, because we could pull, that is another option.
And council member has
The
one.
option would be is that you could evaluate the application, determine that it should be funded,
Mhm.
and that your recommendation be that the city council add $22,500 to the 1% for biennium.
That's always an option.
That's always an option, right?
And so that's somewhat more simple. You don't have to go back and look at all the ones that you funded and decide whether or not to. And you could recommend to us that we put some money in the pot to do that, if you decide that it should be funded. I will tell you that recognize that infrequently in the past, city council has tinkered recommendations, not often, but occasionally they have changed some amounts, and if you made that recommendation, you might do that, I have no idea,
Okay.
but, I was saying that 22,500 is probably
I told her,
budget dust.
these are all
Mhm.
Meaning we could find it in the budget, to do that. And particularly if there was something about this application or this agency's performance over the past 2 years that makes it really desirable to keep them in the fold.
Well,
That's not
So-
what I thought.
and wouldn't it be also their mission?
I have a comment.
If-
In our presentation to city council, Mike made it a matter of fact about taking care of neighborhoods. This is an organization that home delivers. This is the this does what you want it to do, Mike. And it definitely
And
deserves to be funded.
I have another thought in terms of the funding. If I remember correctly, the ones that rated the highest get the full 25. The next round get 22,500 unless they asked for less. What was the third amount that we were willing to fund?
15,000.
So if we were to take the number of applicants who achieved that second rating, second scale, and then basically take the full amount, divide it by the number of applicants, and then redistribute. So basically say instead of being 22,500, it would be 21,000 even, just to see if the numbers work. So they're still getting a fair amount of funding, each of them, without having to find extra money in the budget, all that sort of thing. Basically just reallocate. I just muted myself. Reallocate it in such a way that we're giving each one a little bit less, but we're still giving them an even amount, except for the ones that requested less.
That's another great idea. I think what is a great process could be is talking about all the different options and then having a conversation, so you could narrow some out. You might say that one of the options is not to fund them at all, and you might all say, well, that's not fair, they did the process, so maybe that's not going to be an option. So, I think asking for 22.5 more, that's an option, although the budget is going to be approved tonight and balanced.
Yeah.
So we would have to you would be outside, after the budget's passed. But if that's what the group wanted to do, then we can do that. So I think it'd be good so that,
Yeah.
because we're gonna start having different conversations about different things.
Right.
So it's just to keep in track. And I was gonna send them that, but they don't need that, right?
No.
Because that's not. what
No,
they're
the, and the sheets that Mary's talking about, I had just done numbers in my head in preparation
Oh, that's
for,
not what you want, yeah.
for
sorry.
this. So this isn't, yeah, but we're just gonna talk about the options tonight.
But do they have a list of everybody that was funded, like from the agenda packet, so they can just see how it fits into the pack? Like, he's giving an opportunity to say if there's 6 in that central file and you were then adding 7, added it total and divide. So do they have that, is what I'm asking? Because it's hard to conceptualize for me what all these options are when I'm not looking at
Yeah.
the master list of what we're currently recommending.
So for you two, Michael and Kyle, I don't know if you have the ability, if you go onto the City of Lakewood website right now and click on the agenda for the
Study session on Thursday.
study session, which was the 14th, you will see the funding recommendation sheets there. And then for you all here, I do have that.
I can run a copy of that.
Oh, I wrote all over.
Sorry.
I wrote all over. It's okay, no.
Yeah, I can pull that out.
that you wrote on it.
Well, I wrote on that. Sorry. All right, so while Mary's giving us that, so, like we said on the first one, I don't know if we want to take a vote right now and just say, do we think the first option of just scrubbing it and saying we're not including them is a viable option?
Not at all.
No.
No,
Kyle, Michael?
no.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna not even talk about option anymore. Option about going to council and asking for an additional $22,500 so that we can keep the funding recommendations as they are and fund making a difference, keeping in mind, and again, like Mary said, an option, and it's up to you to tell us what you want to do. Council is voting on the budget tonight.
I have a question.
Sure.
How much of a problem would it be if we had that as our first option? And then when they most likely say no or whatever, then saying, okay, well, here's our alternate suggestion where we have refigured out what we want to do. Or should we
I'm in on
just
that.
do it?
Go ahead, Michael.
I
I'm
want
in
to
on
ask
that.
the council member how that would set with the council if we came in with the primary and in the event that isn't reasonable, then we could have a second one.
This evening, when we meet and we're discussing the budget, I can mention that is an option that you have. That there are a number of things every budget cycle where they're not in the budget, but we can put it in later, be able to go into revenue. Projections are hope they're conservative estimates so that there is some flexibility going on down the road. So I can say that you're considering that option. That if in the discussions tonight it comes back that go back and tell them not to consider that option. I can bring that message back, because you don't have to decide tonight, so this is not gonna be on the, agenda until December 5th for council to approve.
However, we do have to have the agenda ready by next Tuesday, which is right after the Thanksgiving holiday. So I love that idea of you bringing it up so we get some feedback from council.
Absolutely.
But I think we might wanna maybe prioritize what you think might be the other option.
Absolutely.
Kyle, you came up with a good idea.
I'll
and
ask
it
the
could be
question.
And then that way, then we could, if they came back and said, that sounds reasonable, you said they're an amazing resource, it's doing work within the community. I mean, we couldn't even put them all on the map that we got for you the first time, because they're all over. Then that solves that problem, we can move forward.
Well, this is part of our plan.
If there wasn't consensus for that, then it'd be good to have a couple of other options so that Shannon can put the information together and then bring you, but you'd have to come back as a group and make that recommendation. You're gonna have to make a recommendation to council, because that's what they expect from you. And we're adding this to you because you did all the work. You guys did all the work, you came up with the numbers, you did a great job. And so we're asking you, just to reconsider it. So there's lots of different options to consider, and so that's certainly the easiest. Then we don't have to really, nobody else, is penalized for the fact that this application came through. However, they haven't been funded, so technically they're not penalized because they haven't gotten any funding yet. That was just an idea that you came up with, so. Does that make sense?
So I vote that we go first priority, asking the city for the money. Secondly, I like what Kyle had to say. I think that's an option. I'd hesitate to sit down and redo everything because I don't think it's fair to some of the applicants because, we screwed up. Even what Kyle is recommending, is taken away a little bit, but that option makes sense to me.
Other discussion?
I'm in agreement. I think we ask for the money first and then as a secondary, well, not to say that it has to be my plan, but I think that might be the easiest and most straightforward.
I'll
Agree. Shannon, what was the cutoff for the second, level of funding for the 22.5? What was that point total?
39?
Looks like 39.
39.
Okay, well, these guys got 37.
Yeah, 37. So they're in the 22.5 range.
What I'm seeing here is that 39, if 39 was the cutoff for 22, what was the,
So
37 puts it down in 15.
proposal scoring between 37 to 41 points receive up to 22.5. The
Oh,
15 was
37, okay.
33 through
Well, this
36.
37 only got 14.5 because
They asked for
they
it.
only asked for that?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes. So if we have, so they are in the access to food, which there were 8 applicants, and we're looking at, 8 times 22.5.
No, he's
Oh,
he's
7
not saying that.
applicants.
It's not the people in food, it's the people in that point category, is what he's saying.
Is that what you, oh, okay.
Like everybody that's
Right,
in
okay.
tier 2, which is,
Yeah, so we would need to
Starting
look at
at-
everybody who had the full funding, and add 1 for the average to figure out what their actual, funding level would be.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, so what he is
9.
saying is, look at tier
12.
2 and look at all the people who got 22.5.
Yeah, so
Tier
right,
2 people who got like 15, don't include them in the recalculation.
Well, but
Correct.
you have to
you have to
Yeah,
put
they're part of that.
everybody in
Yeah, you have to-
that.
yeah.
And you could, so 30, 40 was, what's the max you could get?
25.
No.
Oh, 46.
46?
46 points.
46 to 39, or 30,
To 40.
46 to 30, what got 25,000?
40 to 46.
40 to 46 got 25,000.
No, okay, so 33 to 36 got 15,000.
33 to 36 got 15,000.
37 to 41 got 22.5, and 42 to 46 got 25,000. And of those that got 22,000,
Well, but you have to count everybody,
right, or who got those points.
yeah.
So everybody in
Hello.
that category
Oh,
started.
can we
I
help
think
you?
you're in the next meeting over there, it got moved. Debbie's meeting?
Oh, so-
Right over there, yeah.
Hi. Hi. This is the, CSAB meeting, Community Services Advisory Board.
Oh,
They're talking about the human services funding application.
yeah, Mike is,
He's in
Mike
it.
is the
One,
most.
two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So there's 16 people or
Now.
agencies, including Making a Difference,
Mhm.
that scored up, 37 to 41 points. So are in that
And-
22.5 category.
How many of those
not counting-
actually would have gotten the full 22.5 versus less than that because they requested less?
There is one,
3, 4 categories. 4.
oh, we have to take the YMCA out
I
though.
didn't count them.
Okay.
Hmm.
I did, so that's 15.
There's 4 categories that got less. There's community health care, there's rescue mission, there's, LASA shelter, and AIDS Foundation. Those are the 4 that got less, but
The Oasis Youth Center.
Yeah, Oasis only asked for 20.
oh, you're right, 20. Got it, fine.
WCA asked, received less.
So how many agencies would have gotten 22,500?
15, are you talking just, they scored in that 15?
No, that actually would have gotten the full 22.5.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
At 9.
13, plus this is 14.
Okay, so our original amount would be 22,500 times 13. So that's 292,500. And now we're gonna divide that by 14. And that would be a total of 20,892.
But
I don't think you can.
that's got people who scored 40 on the application in it,
Should only be 9 plus.
so you're outside the point range doing that.
No, no,
Wait.
no.
Well, and you
So
can't do it that way.
hold on, the points are, proposals between 37 and 41 were for 22.5, got 22.5. And if we look on this list, there are 1, 2, wait, let's take YMCA out, let's just take them off. On this list, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Making a Difference is 14, and then it stops at Pierce County AIDS, 15. So that, are you seeing that too? If you look at those individuals that scored between 37 and 41,
16 county, that's minus that, so yes,
don't count
15.
YMCA.
So 15.
Yeah.
However, you can't just do that times 22.5 because I think your idea, but you'd add up everybody that got what their funding was,
Mm-hmm.
and then instead of dividing by 15, divide by, if you weren't gonna get any extra money, you divide by, or instead of dividing by 14, you divide by 15. That's how you would do that. If you were gonna just count that category.
Yes.
You only had 4 people getting the full funding.
Yes, because you had some others that asked for lower.
Or 3 that got
When you-
full funding.
3, is that mine? I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, sorry. So 3 people, correct, 3 people, only 3 people got 25,000.
Right.
are we focusing on those or as well? Or are we just focusing on the middle tier that are from 37 to 41 and got the 22.5 if we're looking at what Kyle,
For this particular option, because we're just talking about one of 6 or 7 or 8 options,
Yeah.
for this particular option, his recommendation was to take that second tier
yep,
and add the total amount that was allocated to the second tier, not what they could have gotten, but what they had been allocated, if we're talking about no new money, without.
Pause there though, because it's only the ones that got the full 22.5, not the ones that requested less than that. So if there were 17 applicants, 4 of them came in at under the 22,500, then it's just looking at the 13 remaining that we said initially would be at 22.5, taking the average of that and then adding one agency and dividing again. So that is at 14 agencies, and that puts us at just under 20,900 per agency.
I understand that. Can I ask you a question? Why, if you're looking at a point score, so there's equity between all the groups, regardless of if they got 22.5 or they only asked for 15, but they're in that score, wouldn't you have to add all of them? Because that way then you're not skewing that category of points.
No, and the reason I'm not is because I'm looking at the funds specifically. So the amount of agencies, if we were to say, the funds that we have available for 37 to 41 are X amount. So we take that total and we reduce the amount of the 4 agencies that came in at lower requests. So then we have a remaining pot, and we divide that remaining pot by the 14 agencies so that they all get the same amount of funding. It would be a lot easier to show on a spreadsheet, but basically it's saying we have X amount of dollars for this point range, 37 to 41, subtract the lower amounts that requested less, and then divide the remainder by those 14 agencies.
So that instead of it being a 22.5, that potential category was only gonna be valued at, say, 20,005 or whatever it is.
Correct.
So the lower
Yes.
ones are still gonna get that same amount. I get it.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Does that make
And
sense?
the maximum it's the maximum that he.
It's the maximum, yeah,
so what you're saying is, what you're saying, Kyle, is take only, and I'm counting only the 9 individuals that are gonna get 22.5. So 22.5 times 9 divided by 14, or no?
divide by,
So what I'm asking for is,
divide by
what-
10, 'cause you're
what's
adding
the
new
number of
group in.
agencies that would have gotten the full 22.5 that requested more than that? So it's taking, how many agencies total were there in that point category? I'm sorry, that point range, minus the amount of, sorry, let me rephrase that.
Okay.
Number of agencies minus the number of agencies that requested less.
Okay,
So how many agencies were we going to fund the full 22.5?
9.
9,
Okay,
And then
so
this would be 10 if you added them, right?
yeah.
Okay.
so 22,500 times 9,
Divide by 10.
correct.
This is again just one, yeah, got it, okay.
So
that
then
makes sense to you?
that puts it at 20,250.
So everybody gets, in that price, in that
Count, you know,
category, gives up 22.50, which isn't really bad.
it's even.
With the exceptions of the agencies that requested less, and they are getting the full amount that they requested.
Right, so that, and then that way, the top categories get the full, because that's what you recommended they get because of their work.
Right.
The lower ones get the lower amount based on their point score, and then that evens it in the middle,
Right.
Correct.
and it's 20,250.
So the only question I have then
25,
is,
yeah.
of those agencies that requested less than the 25,000, did anyone request more than 20,250?
No.
Okay, then that makes our math just as even as it was before. We're just awarding a little bit less to each of the agencies that requested 25. So we're awarding them 20,250 each instead of 25, or I'm sorry, instead of 22,500.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good option. We figured that out. Thank you for clarifying that, Kyle. That was complicated from afar, but.
It
that
is
makes- I mean,
complicated
I
from
think
afar.
Yeah, but do you all understand that?
Yep.
So that makes sense.
Exactly.
Okay, that's another
Then we
discussion.
would not be needing to go to council and asking for extra funds or anything other than to explain
Well,
how we're reallocating money.
it doesn't knock anybody off the bottom.
Right.
It
How do you say it,
basically just
Councilmember?
realigns that second tier, which was almost an arbitrary number to pick 22.5 to begin with, because you just did it based on the balances.
Yeah.
So this would just be if they had been in there, and you can't go back then now, but it could have been that you picked, 38 to 41, right?
They
So
did
there
ask
could,
for
you know, but
25.
it still would have been the same, so,
Right.
yeah.
They did ask for 25, okay, they
They
didn't
asked
ask
for
for less.
They asked for the full, oh, yeah, that's a
Okay,
good question.
So what I would think I would do is I would tell the council that this situation occurred, that unscored application was evaluated as should be funded in the second tier of recommended one, and that, option you asked me to inquire about is, can 22,500 be added into the 1% for this biennium? And then I would tell them that if not, if they ask me, I would say that if not, then you would have to go and recalculate the funding allocations for multiple agencies. And you would do that if we tell you to.
And it would be 22,500 each year for 2 years, because we budget for 2 years, so.
And then the second step would be, we would go back and recalculate.
Yeah, if they say no, there is no more blood in this turnip, then you'll have to you'll have to use Kyle's calculus and recalculate.
Well, and I think that what would be helpful for you to share with them is that the easiest way is to do the additional funds, but the group is looking at various ways of recalculating. So
Yeah,
not to just say we're gonna go back, I mean, just so that they understand right now we're talking about these different scenarios, and there's several. So, is there another scenario that Shannon, I think that this one makes quite a bit of sense, because it's based on what you just did. Are there other scenarios that you mentioned, that Shannon mentioned, that would be, let's have a conversation and see how it affects the numbers?
I can't
Are there other
imagine, I can't imagine two options that are any more favorable than the ones that we have on the board right now.
Right, because other options would include either reducing by a certain percentage or by a certain dollar amount, you know, across the board.
The only other
or
option
certain-
that's there is be very similar, but instead of recalculating entire tier 2, just recalculate tier 2 food.
I mean, tier 2 food. Oh, so even hone it down even more.
Yeah, in other words, you allocated in
Right.
tier 2 so much money for food, if you wanna make room for this inside, you could. That would that would have a bigger impact on individual agencies than if it was spread across 9, because I think there's
We didn't rate them.
With the new one.
But it becomes, it's a similar option, but I don't think, for tonight, don't need to know.
Because we're not going back,
Yeah, you know, you put it, it is easier for me tonight to say,
Right.
could be recalculated, but the preference is to,
well, and that's
throw in
amazing that
some
you're
more
willing to share that with council too, so that's wonderful, because it does make it a lot easier.
Well,
Because we've been talking about points for funding, not focusing on the strategy for funding, because you could consider, and council hasn't directed us to do that, but another way of doing that would be, we're gonna give a proportion of the funds, whether that's whatever that is, a proportion of the funds to strategy one, proportions of the funds to strategy two. And it doesn't have to be even Steven, it could be 75% food and 10% for, housing and 3%, you know, you could do that, but we've never been asked to do it that way, and we haven't calculated, it's all been by points.
Don't
Yeah,
wanna
the-
do
the
it that way, it
console-
just
Yeah.
sounds messy.
Yeah, we've done the
Well, and I think we
analysis
need to
before.
consider
Yeah.
what will happen and what the feedback would be when if we say, okay, you're getting cut, but these other folks are keeping their same recommendation in their funding because you happen to fall in this number category, then that could be a sticky wicket from my point of view.
This is defensible, it's entirely
It's defensible, exactly, and that other one is not, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they'll all be defensible if you have a logic model that supports them, it's just how do you want to go forward with doing this? You spent a lot of time analyzing all of the applications, and you scored them, and you gave everybody a score based on the merits of their program, and then you came back and looked at them based on the merits of their program and how it fit within those funding areas. So, you know, you weren't focusing on the specific strategy, for funding. So, but you could, because there's, you know, people do it that way too. They decide they're gonna give this much to housing and this much to food and this much to youth but we didn't start that way. That doesn't mean you couldn't. As long as you have a good logic model to share with council as to how you got to where you're at. Even last time you had a good logic model, but you told council how you got there. So, they totally understood that, so. Their questions were more on what the groups were doing, not on the process that you did. They thought your process was very good and clear and fair, so.
And I would say, as Barry talked about it, the idea of giving you guidance to say, put X amount of money or X percentage of money against each strategy. It was something that the council has discussed over the years and always rejected, because they really preferred you to make that distinction rather than us being that prescriptive.
Agreed.
So do we get a vote on these two options? Is that what we do next?
What is the
I think we
pleasure
wanna make
of the
sure that
group?
we have included all options and considered all options.
Well, let's go
Tonight.
through and say no to the other ones, so go ahead and read them.
Yeah.
Not, okay,
Let's have the other option.
Not funding, making a difference, and going with our recommendations previously approved.
Those in favor?
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Okay,
Thumbs up or thumbs down,
all
okay.
right. Going to council and asking for additional funds out of the 1%. Okay, that's our first option.
Oh, yeah, right.
I don't
I'm just gonna throw this one in there, how about we, recategorize, refund based on category? So we go to council, okay?
Strategy.
Strategy. Kyle's suggestion that we just, okay.
Right.
Okay. Were those all of the options that you?
So we're then asking
And
the
did
council
anybody
members
else have any
tonight
other options?
Yeah,
bring it
did
up for
anybody-
discussion as when they propose the budget.
Yeah, since the budget is an action item tonight, I can,
That's the initial part of the plan.
yeah, and then you'll get that feedback and you'll have another Zoom meeting next Tuesday and
Right.
just decide where that goes.
Well, I think if the group decided that they were fine with either of those two options, we could prepare the agenda bill without having another meeting if those were the two options, unless council came up with another option, if somebody on council decided they wanted us to look at something else, so.
I would guess you'll get a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the one option
I would think so.
out of discussions this evening.
I would think
Yeah.
So that would leave you, that would leave you with either a positive answer or a no, so.
Right.
And we've got option B to go back
Well,
to,
and we
and we
give us
have the
direction
map,
in the way to go.
Yeah.
and we have the map on
And-
option
Right,
B.
we all agreed.
Yes,
Yeah, sounds good.
okay. Agreed?
Do we need to have a formal vote as to
I don't
which
vote.
option
No,
we
I was
prefer?
trying to ask you.
Or is that
Yeah, I-
already
sorry,
in the, is that assumed
He's
already?
asking which, yeah, he's asking if, you should make a motion, and you should have maybe a prioritization of the two.
Absolutely.
What you prefer first, and then what you're willing to come back with for a second, I think that's what he's asking. You should do that as a group, as an action item, so you can have that in your minutes.
I was going to call for a clarification and a vote on all those.
I so move.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thumbs up, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah.
all right, got it.
Good move, good
Wow.
plan.
Nice work, Kyle.
Good job, people.
You're
Kyle's
hired.
the mathematician, man. He's got that strategic mind.
Anything further for the business, go to the
Anything for
order?
the-
Go ahead, meeting is adjourned.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
both
thank
of you
you.
very much.